Okay, so let's take it from the top. So
let's go back.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MES Presents 9 on the Q, the show that discusses billiards and current events and how the two may intertwine. I'm your host, Tyreek A. Murphy, and tonight we have special guests, Tennessee State Attorney, Tennessee State Councilman, and just all around, superstar out here. He's a Razorback, while we also have to throw that out there. Councilman J.B. Smiley Jr., how are you doing today, sir?
Man, all is well. Taking a day at a time. Just got done feeding my face. So, winding down for the day. Winding down. Netflix on. So it's time.
Nothing wrong with that. First thing first, how are you and the family holding up out here in these COVID streets?
Man, we good. Just trying to stay COVID free. Staying COVID free. And trying to make some money while we're doing this.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So let's get on cue, brother. Tell us, when was your first experience into the world of pool?
I was 7. I went to my best friend's house. He was all excited, talking about he had a new game, and it was actually a huge pool table they had in the garage, and we just started playing.
Okay. So would you say he was the one that influenced you, or was there other aspects?
Man, there's nothing else to do. It was either playing basketball or we was in this garage playing pool, and that's the only thing, we really weren't playing video games at that point in time. I think they came like a year or two later, but was attempting to play pool. I'm not even sure if he was doing it the right way, but we were in the garage playing.
Okay. So to change gears a little bit, just to dig in a little deep, especially as it pertains to your legal knowledge, in reference to your appellate law experience, do you think that there's enough merit to reverse the landmark decision Roe v. Wade?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really have to. I hate to be so frank about it, but although laws are in place, politics influence the law. So if you put enough pro-life Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court, I guess that's where we end up. We would.
I lost you for a second. I didn't hear that last part.
Yeah, somebody started calling me.
Oh, okay.
I said if we put enough, if there ends up being a majority of Supreme Court justices who are pro-lifers, who we can have this conversation and we would be saying, wow, that decision was overturned. So it just depends on who's on the Supreme Court and their political leanings, to be honest with you. If they lean far right, we're in trouble. So, hopefully we don't get to that point. We might be there now, but we have a president who is not a pro-life. His political stances aren't pro-life. So even if we got to that point, there's some avenues that he could take to address that.
Right. So regarding equality and protection of Black women, and especially cases like the Breonna Taylor, how would you go about preventing injustices against Black women?
Well, so the thing about it is we talk about injustices against Black women, but the truth of the matter, if you're Black, you're a target as it relates to almost anything dealing with the criminal justice system. I was reading a study today talk about Black men ages 15 to 34. They are more likely to die from gun violence than anything else during those stages. So, but what we have to do in our society to protect Black women, to protect Black people, protect any minority, is we have to put people in place who actually comes from our community. You can't represent, and this is what I would tell people when I was on the campaign trail. You can't represent me if you're afraid to walk my streets. So you can't adequately represent, a Black woman if you don't have any black women in your life. You can't adequately protect black women if you don't have any black women in your life. You have to put people in position who understands the plight of those communities, understand the plight of those individuals, so that they can put laws in place, so they can advocate for them, so they can understand what it's like to have a dialogue with those communities. Because if you're from Memphis and you go to say, I'm going to South. The folks in that community.
Right. So, with the black community calling for systematic reform all across the nation, budget reallocation across the nation, yourself as a black man, as an attorney, and as a politician, what do you think should be government officials' essential priority?
To systematic reform? The first, it's a list of them. I'm gonna give you I'm gonna put myself in the role of the president in this scenario. So the very first thing I would do, other than trying to address COVID, would be tackling marijuana. I think we have to legalize it on the federal level right away. But not only when we legalize it, we also have to be looking to commute some of the sentences of those individuals who were unfairly targeted because of the marijuana crime. And, because of the crime at the time it was illegal to use marijuana. I think we have a very different conversation when we're talking about opioids. At no point in time did we criminalize opioids, because a large bulk of the people who use opioids don't look like us. So I think we have to talk about commuting sentences. We have to talk about possibly expunging records and also legalizing marijuana, because we know that disproportionately affects, have a negative impact on the black community. So that would be my top priority.
Okay. So as the new era of young, diversified advocates and political figures emerge, do you think organizations like your Black Caucus of Young Democrat of America and our Black Party would get, good support to stimulate good trouble?
Well, and that's, first of all, I love good trouble. You just go ahead. Good trouble is always necessary for me. But in terms of them seeing support on the political front, it's going to be tough. You will have, I guess, a select few elected officials who would align themselves with those organizations and do what they can to support it. But, black folks make up 13% of the population. And a lot of times when our elected officials, they always tend, if you look at those individuals who are elected to, large offices, the majority of them are moderate. So they're scared to identify with organizations they consider too black. I'm not, but they're scared to identify organizations considered too black. So hopefully we get some elected officials who have enough courage to say, you know what, I understand their mission, I understand their plight. We need to do what we can to support these organizations.
Right. So, as a bonus question, just to go back, one question, especially as it pertains to, if somebody actually asked the question, it was like, what would you do in regards to gang violence?
Oh man, I think you was listening to the interview I did today, the news station here. So, and it wasn't necessarily about gang violence, but I think it ties in. The question that the reporter from News Channel 5 here asked me was, we've surpassed, our murder mark this year in terms of gun violence by like 100 and something. So we're at over 300. We just had a double homicide yesterday, a triple homicide this morning. So, our murder rate is skyrocketing. And what I talked about was, see how to explain it, a program that they started in Richmond, California. So Richmond, California has they created something called the Office of Neighborhood Support, ONS, Office of Neighborhood Support. And what they did was they created a division of the city government, not police, that are stationed in communities that have high gun violence. So let's say you get the pastor in that community and you put them on city payroll. You would get someone who grew up in the streets in the community, put them on city payroll, and you will have them in charge of doing two things. Well, first thing, finding out and pinpointing those youth who are at risk of being victims of gun violence. And you also have them figure out and target those individuals who could be considered perpetrators of gun violence, not with the purpose of criminalizing them or putting them behind bars, but with the purpose of building rapport, relationships with them. And then assuming they are able to get those relationships, they start inviting them in and say, look, what type of social service do you need? What type of financial stability do you need? Are you looking for housing? Because a lot of times where folks get to the point of committing those type of heinous acts, it's usually acts of desperation. If we can figure out how to alleviate those acts of desperation, we're stopping a lot of the violent crimes that we're seeing. But then there's another component. That Office of Neighborhood Support will also have what they call peacekeepers. Peacekeepers, they function in the role of, if there was ever a situation where it was a tense environment or a confrontation between two folks, and we knew they were in an at-risk or perpetrator community, we bring them in, and then we serve as a mediator to hopefully alleviate those concerns, so that both parties leave feeling like, okay, I don't have to resort to violence. So I love that model. I talked about it today. And, if things go the way that I plan on going, in 2021, we'll be piloting a program similar to that in, some of our high crime areas.
Right. So let me ask you and another bonus question. I swear we'll get back on.
It's all good, man.
But so in regards to, especially when we have the new elections and the new officials coming in, and, we have some DAs that are progressive, particularly, the new ones that we have that was just elected, Jason Williams out in New Orleans, and goodness, I forgot his name already. The new DA for Los Angeles. I think it's Garcon, if I'm pronouncing that right. But what do you think with cities like that, that have the DAs that are progressive, and, state representatives that are being more progressive with changing the laws and making things more diverse and more, equality across it? Do you think that those states, or those cities rather, would have more of an effective turnaround rate, or do you think there might be a resistance?
Well, so when I address that question like this. So when Dr. King was a young man and he started, talking about, creating a movement to do things differently, it wasn't just white folks pushing back against him. It was black people pushing back against him, saying, you're moving too fast, you're a little too progressive. So I'm saying that to say, whenever there's a movement to do something that's not the norm, whether it's right or wrong, it can be, apparent that it's the right thing, but there's always going to be people pushing back against you. Just because it's not their idea. Two, because they're scared that if you're too progressive, you're going to scare people away. And three, sometimes they just don't understand. So of course there's going to be pushback, but to those folks who are in those positions, I hope they keep going. So they're blazing the trail, they're leading the path for states like Tennessee, which is the opposite of progressive. It's the opposite. So yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but do you think you guys are slowly moving towards that route, or do you think it's going to be just a little bit? It's going to take a little bit more time.
I was going to take more time, but folks like myself, we have a guy here by the name of Justin Bailey who's gearing up for a campaign for district attorney. So I think all across the country, there's people who are progressive, and they're going to go against the establishment, because that's what we need. We need someone to push against the grain if we're ever going to get to the point where we all feel like we're included in this society, this country.
Right. So coming back to your legal expertise, especially as it pertains to the portion of employment, what is the biggest common fallacy that you deal with regarding potential litigation?
Let's see. The biggest I can do it myself. I think I can do it myself gets people in a lot of trouble, because a lot of times once they get there and they already filed some stuff, And then it's like, oh my goodness, the judge tells them, now you're up against an attorney. If you don't know how to submit evidence, nothing comes in. And then say, oh crap, I need to get an attorney. But by that time, you're probably going to end up paying more money because the attorney has to correct your mistakes and then put forth his or her case. So 9 times out of 10, you cannot do it yourself. Call somebody. It won't hurt you to pick up the phone and call somebody to understand, especially when you're talking about the rules of evidence, because if you don't understand how to submit some evidence before the judge, you don't know how to get it for the judge to even take a look at it. There's some things that have to be done. If you don't understand that, nothing you can have a piece of paper that says, here's all the things they did wrong. Here's all the things I did right. They owe me $500,000. You can take that document in the court, but if you do not know how to submit it to the court, the judge won't look at it, and it doesn't matter. So people believe that they can do it themselves.
So now, as a bonus question, you practice both in Tennessee as well as Arkansas, correct?
Arkansas, in about 2 months, I'll be practicing in Mississippi. I'm waiting on my third license.
Okay. So where do you, within the 2 states that you're practicing now, which one do you like, which one interests you the most? I should say, put it that way. Between Arkansas and Tennessee.
Well, I'm extremely biased at this point. I'm elected in Memphis, Tennessee, and I do most of my cases are in Memphis. I have a few cases in Arkansas because I went to law school in Arkansas, but Tennessee.
Hence the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why earlier you heard me say Razorback. He understood what I'm talking about. That's the school nickname.
Yeah, they love their Razorbacks in Arkansas.
Yeah. So coming back to your pool experience, give us one technique that you would utilize in pool that you can use in other facets of your life.
One technique?
Yeah,
I won't necessarily call it a technique, but it's something that, no matter what I do, I try to I kind of use the same strategy. I would say strategy as opposed to technique, which is, and it's something my dad taught me: measure twice, cut once. And when I was, so we go back to when I was younger, when my friend was just beating my butt, and I was just getting in, and I was just hit it without even taking time, figuring out the angles. I'm just okay, let's just hit it. And then I realized, if I took my time, made sure the angles were right, and I was more likely to, been able to be successful. So just, measuring twice, cutting once. And I take that approach to everything that I do because the fewer mistakes, the better.
Right. So a bonus question, with there being such restrictions regarding COVID, do you think Billiards have the capability to return into sports broadcasting? And would you watch?
Repeat the question.
I said, with there being so many restrictions with COVID, do you think Billiards have the capability of returning to sports broadcasting? And would you watch?
The answer is yes and yes. So, with Billiards, you can space. Right. You can go stand in the corner while the other person is playing. So you can space out. Even, the folks who broadcast it, who commentate while people are playing, they're spacing out. So I don't think, COVID is going to inhibit any of the sports in the foreseeable future, especially with successful NBA season in the bubble. People understand how to do it and what to do. And the truth of the matter is, if we do what we're supposed to do, starting, I think next week, the vaccinations started to go out. So I think, 6 months from now, we're in a completely different situation.
Right. So, actually, 2 questions. One came in. Someone, just to take you back a bit, someone asked, what got you into law? What was your motivation to get into law?
Oh, man. My mom, it's her fault. So, listen, it's definitely my mom's fault. So what happened, so I would come home from school, and my mom would have the same routine. When she walks through the door, she's going to sit down in front of the TV, and she's going to watch 2 things, which is responsible for both things that I've done in my life. So when she would always watch the University of Memphis, well, it was Memphis State basketball. So, and I played basketball up until I was 23. Then I went to law school. So basketball. But then in like 90, I don't remember, maybe 95, can't remember. There was this big trial on TV. And I came in trying to talk to my mom. My mom said, move, boy, move. Sit down, watch it with me. Something. So I sat down, and there was a guy with a small afro on TV by the name of Johnny Cochran. I said, well,
okay,
looks good. I'm going to be Michael Jordan and Johnny Cochran. What's up?
That's when the legal wheels started turning.
Yeah. So just figuring out who Johnny Cochran was, and his influence on black culture and black society. Because
right.
For the most part, we didn't see any successful black lawyers. No, and for me, I didn't know any lawyers. So the very first lawyer that I remember seeing was Johnny Cochran. I was like, who is this guy? Why is he wearing a suit? Is he a preacher? And he wasn't a preacher. So, and I just started trying to figure, learn things about it. And at that point, I think I made it in my mind that I want to figure out what this gentleman did, and it just happened.
Right. Okay. So tell us, is there any celebrity or iconic figure that you would like to play a game of pool against?
Chris Paul. So Chris Paul, we're about the same height. He plays basketball. He talks a lot of noise, and I know he bowls. So I'm not gonna try to bowl. I know he plays basketball because he's a professional NBA player. Look, I think I can take him to pool. I just think I can. I think I got it.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Matter of fact, we're going to start a hashtag, man. We're going to start a hashtag on something. Try to call them out. So tell us, is there anything that's going on with you out there in Memphis or just within the 3 states that you're working on that we should know about or be on the lookout about, that we should support or anything of that nature?
Well, behind the scenes, I drafted a piece of legislation for activist organization in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga, Tennessee is East Tennessee. It's like the one blue dot, the one progressive city, and a sea of red, which is completely different. I drafted a piece of legislation from them. They turned in like 6,000 signatures to get it on the ballot for the people to vote on. And they received a phone call today saying they didn't have enough ballot signatures. So they needed 4,700 signatures. They threw out 1,300 signatures, and those signatures weren't valid. And basically the gist of the piece of legislation was a community control board, which gives civilian individuals the opportunity to review police misconduct. And they're concerned there was some shady business going on in the Hamilton County Election Commission to disqualify 1,300 signatures so that they could be below the number needed to have it on the ballot this upcoming election. So I'm get off this call at some point and draft an email for them so they can potentially challenge the decision made by their election commission.
Well, I'm definitely not gonna hold you up, man. We need you to get that drafted and sent out. But just one question in regards to that, what was the motivation behind that? Was it something, was it someone out there, a resident out there in that particular city that reached out to you, or was it just something that you yourself saw?
So what happened was there was an organization called Coalitions of Concerned Citizens for Justice in Chattanooga, and they want more civilian oversight of the police department. And they reached out to an elected official in Shelby County and asked him who to call, and somehow I ended on the phone. And we was I think I worked on that piece of legislation for about 3 months and drafted, got it ready for them to go, and the rest is history. They worked hard to get the 6,000 plus signatures, only to find out that 1,300 were not valid. So they're trying to figure out what's the next step for them.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Congressman J.B. Smiley Jr. for joining us, Tennessee State Congressman, but soon to be practicing in 3 different states.
Either you're speaking into my life, calling me Congressman, or I'm gonna receive that word. Councilman.
We know Councilman, but we know it's Councilman. We gonna say Congressman. I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna throw it out you. But no, brother, go ahead and take care of business, and we definitely gonna talk.
Most definitely, man. Take it easy. Appreciate the interview.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
All right, take it easy.